we were all staring down Y2K. Hardware store by my house had like guys with guns on the roof because they were afraid there was going to be a run on the hardware store. And, everybody thought the world was going to end. So we decided, hey, let's go to a swamp in Florida.
We're going to go now to the Big Cypress Seminole Indian Reservation in Florida. There was the biggest traffic jam that we know of in the country was caused on what's sometimes called Alligator Alley, which is South Florida's east to west highway. And it was jammed today with fans of the Phish going to the Big Seminole Indian Reservation to hear a Phish concert.
We drove down with 2 cars. We got food poisoning on the way in. We ate at a Miami Subs, and we got like hot cold cut sandwiches, and we threw up all over the highway. So that was a fun way to start.
My friends and I, because this was pre, cell phone, we had beepers, some of us, and we agreed to meet at a hotel. I believe it was in Tampa.
Going down there, Penny tells the story all the time how I completely pissed her off because she was like, we got to travel light. There's 4 of us. We have an SUV. We're going to be packed. All right, cool. We'll travel light.
The reason being is that we were all going to have this caravan and we were going to leave together to go into the festival so that once we got there, we'd be able to set up camp together.
I show up there. She goes in the house and I have a army bag, the huge army bag with 144 T-shirts to sell.
And it was a 17-car caravan. And when I tell that to people now, I was in a 17-car caravan on the way into Big Cypress. They're all like, oh yeah, me too. Or they're like, maybe we were a part of that because we were in a 17-car caravan.
So I get Mike, her future husband, and his buddy Tim to completely take everything out of the truck, out of the SUV. I bury my shirts in the bottom and we pack everything back on top. And it ended up we had extra stuff that we had to have stuff in our laps. Me and Tim sitting in the back seat driving down there.
Turns out, no, it wasn't a 17-car caravan. It was a 17-car section of a 10,000-car caravan.
It was a good 15-hour drive. We drove to the edge of South Carolina, Florida, and stayed the night. Then we got up on the 29th, morning of the 29th, and drove the rest of the way.
We got into like easily 40 hours of traffic. And there was a guy in traffic that was just local guy leaving the grocery store. And he somehow got into Big Cypress traffic and he was losing his fucking mind.
That traffic jam to get into the festival was, by my count, 84 hours. Or at least it felt like that. It was like, at least 10, I want to say.
By the time we got there, thank God we stopped and got gas. We waited 14 hours.
And people were going up to his car and going like, okay, here's where you are right now. It was like wavy gravy, like talking people down. He's like, yo, so this is a concert. We're all going to Alligator Alley or whatever. Like you're in traffic for a while. So like either pull off and go. But the guy was freaking out about his car and his groceries. And it was awesome.
We were completely stopped for hours and hours. I mean, like everyone had their car off. They got out their camping stuff, their stoves. People were cooking. Somebody had the disco going. We had a little disco party.
At one point, while we were completely stopped on the highway, middle of the highway, alligators are on the side, by the way, because it's Alligator Alley. I decided to get on top of my Jeep Cherokee, my dad's Jeep Cherokee, and moon everybody behind me.
Like people had food out. It was just, we camped on the road. There was nothing you could do. And
after our Oswego experience and the traffic that we sat in trying to get in there, I wasn't going to be dealing with that for this one.
I didn't think that one through because then we were stuck with everyone behind me. We were all stuck together for another 9 hours.
The rumors were 80 to 100,000 people. So it was like, holy shit, it's going to be packed. Traffic's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. So we got there like the day before the day before.
Everybody was out on the highway having a good time, partying. Getting in that place was a total shit show. There was 2 rivers that ran along the highway.
We could see the line slowly building up, and like we got there thinking like we're so early, like we're gonna have to like sit on the side of the road until, but there were already people waiting.
And I remember at one point it was nighttime, and we were like, our car was at like the curve onto the final highway to go in, and we were drinking beers, and I went over to like near the water to take a leak, and an alligator like just kind of walked right by and got in the water, and my dick disappeared, and I walked backwards into the car.
And we pulled into the last gas station before the festival, which was off the exit. And I remember there was an alligator right there, off, not on the concrete, obviously, but there's a little swamp, right to feet away from where we parked.
So we sat in maybe a couple of hours of traffic on the morning of the 29th. They opened it up. We got in because of where we were really close to like the concert park, which was pretty cool.
So I had my now ex-girlfriend go and pose by the alligator. That was probably the second dumb decision that I did. And the festival didn't even start yet.
So we did not deal with like the mega traffic jam, like the person that died, like all of that stuff. We did not deal with any of that on the way in.
Once you got in, it was pretty easy. We started setting up. I pull all the shirts out, and Penny flipped out on me that I brought all these shirts with me. But that Thursday, from the time we got in till when I went to bed early Friday morning at like 3 a.m., I sold every shirt before it even started.
And we got in there, we got set up early. One of the big things we had read about were these like mounds of fire ants that were all over like the different campgrounds. And it was like, be very careful about setting your tent up over these fire ant mounds.
They had, they really stepped it up for Big Cypress, building an entire, what looked like a swamp, it looked like a swamp front property, or like a swamp side little strip.
They had the little town. There was a woodsy area.
I did put something in the time capsule, but it's lost to time because I have no idea what it was. Maybe it was a note to my future self.
They had the little chicky huts. They had these little huts that were made like thatch that you could go sit in.
Inside the festival, my friends got married. This was known, of course, beforehand. And so there were arrangements for it. It was a beautiful wedding as far as lot weddings go.
We sat in one and smoked a bunch of hash. There was hardly any weed. People were like, everybody was like, there's no weed. I pulled in and bought an eighth. The guy next to us had a bunch of weeds. So, but this one guy had some hash, and we sat in the little in the little hut there and smoked some hash with them.
It's the only lot wedding that I actually attended from the beginning through the whole thing, other than maybe happenstance weddings that happened in the lot or festivals that you hear about. But no, my friends got married. Since there was a 17-car caravan, we set up camp, and we were a village. And that was a really cool facet to this festival. Everybody had their own little villages.
And the weird ice sculptures, man, the Mayan pyramid, that they built out of ice. And so it was cold enough. It was cool enough that it didn't completely melt. If you stuck the Mayan pyramid at Mondegreen, I bet it would melt in an afternoon.
I think the lot and the band kind of got gross at the same time a little bit. Like, I think that it was like, I've definitely noticed there being more like just when ecstasy started making its way through the scene.
It wasn't just your campsite. It wasn't just your circle of friends with the bonfire in the middle. I mean, we had our own little village, and we had a wedding ceremony for Jeff and Lucky, and it was very Phish centric. You know, rather than for richer or poorer, I think the line was like for something or Hobbs. You know, for Flush or for Hobbs or something like that. It was pretty cool though.
There was these like rats that were walking around at Big Cypress with a baby doll wrapped in like a blanket, and they would drop the baby where people were walking and be like, "Yo, my kid, you just stepped on my kid." And people were like, "Oh my God, I just stepped on your baby." And they were just like, "Ah, gotcha," like laughing. And it was like, "You dumb fuck. Like, what are you doing?" You know what I mean? Like stupid shit like that. That's like,
they had ballerinas dressed as fairies going through the little wooded area by where the town was, like where I don't know what they called it for that, but yeah, that was a little strange because you're like, at first you thought it was just somebody, a Phish fan having fun, but then you noticed there were several of them.
I mean, if you're gonna prank people, I mean, I work on a prank TV show, like I'm all for it, but like that shit's fucked up. Like, you're not drop a baby in like a mud pit as you're like 1,000 people are walking out of like the Millennium like, you know.
Because of that, there was a feeling there while we were in there that, hey, when we leave, what if the rest of the world has, you know, what if there was a zombie apocalypse? We wouldn't have known. We were as far removed from the whole world as possible. We were on a swampland in the Florida Everglades, insular and totally isolated.
So it got a little bit dicey and weird, but I mean, again, there were the good people too, and everybody did the drugs. So it was just a matter of, I think around 99 through like 03 was when it was like the grossest, the dark age. Yeah. But the music was pretty goddamn good.
Musically, for the sound check, they played Ballad of Curtis Lowe, which to me, that was one of the highlights of the whole weekend. Was so weird. One of the highlights, the musical highlights of the weekend for me was like vaguely hearing, these days I probably wouldn't even hear it, vaguely hearing off in the distance the band run through Ballad of Curtis Lowe, which would be another, I don't know, 11 years before I saw them play live.
I'll tell you what, I've never been in a bigger crowd before or since. To the point where like we were with a few other people, and it was the same old college girlfriend that I had gone to Oswego with.
We got in there and it was gigantic, and I mean it was massive, so big.
I felt like we were like dead center in the middle of whatever it was, 75, 80,000 people.
The stage seemed like a million miles away.
It felt like you would have to part the Red Sea, and there was no way you were going to find your way back to wherever you were.
That one felt the biggest when I think about it. Like that one felt like size-wise the biggest. Maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but I felt the furthest back.
I just couldn't believe how many people there were. And like, that is one, like every time I see like the overhead shots, the shots from the stage, I'm just in awe that like I'm somewhere in that sea of people.
And Phish played so much. People forget. Everyone tells you that Big Cypress Phish played from midnight until dawn. But what they don't say is that the day before,
they did 3 sets on the first day. Water in the Sky, they opened up with.
I think the first night's when they did Light Up or Leave Me Alone.
I think the Possum was pretty good.
And they did a New Year's show on the 30th.
Ghost was fun.
They played 3.5, 4 hours.
The second set had Wilson to open, The Curtain, The Tweezer, and To Taste.
They played Tweezer.
So you're like, oh, Tweezer's off the table for the long set. What's going on, you know?
Good Times, Bad Times at the end of the set.
They played Mike's Wikipod.
You know, and you started, crossing songs off.
There was just like we were building towards this, monumental thing.
They weren't holding back. They played 3 sets on the 30th.
Just that alone, that show alone was fucking fantastic.
I fucked that up. And also I went a little too hard on the 30th. And I went real hard on the 30th. That was the night when the guy dropped the baby doll, and I was like pissed. I remember being fucking real pissed. And I think that I timed the drugs, and I think I took the wrong drugs. Like I tripped early on, and then I took ecstasy too late, and it was, again, that dirty, gross ecstasy. Like I didn't take the right stuff. And I was just very like kind of, but there was no way I wasn't going down. I mean, I was there,
And then when they did the after midnight, right before midnight on New Year's, and then I guess the hot dog, them opening up with Meat Stick, and you're like, all right. Well, I remember when they went into Meat Stick, I was, all right, this is it. It's happening. They're really going to do this. And it was after midnight, so you knew that the world wasn't going to crash.
The after midnight and the whole long set was, we lost a friend of mine in the beginning of it, and then he just meandered his way 5 hours later back to us, which was super cool.
When we set up for the late night set, they had blocked off like a section through the middle of the crowd, and we were maybe 10 or 15 feet back from this barricade that had been set up. So we knew something was going to happen. And then they come out in this airboat, right at like 11:30, 11:45, something like that. Meat Stick is playing on the PA. And they like appear kind of literally out of nowhere, and we start to hear the crowd, and so we like look over, and then all of a sudden we see in the boat, I have like some old pictures of them like going right by us. They're throwing candy into the crowd, and I was like, holy shit, they're right there. Like, oh my God, that's so awesome. This is only my second year of Phish, so I'm like, oh, the hot dog. So I like freaked out. I'm like, I'm seeing this. They get up there, they feed Father Time the meat sticks. And then, they start playing Meat Stick, along with the PA cuts out. And like, at that moment, I was like, this is the most unbelievable Phish experience I've ever had.
At 3 a.m, they were being broadcast for Rockin' New Year's Eve, or whichever show it was. I think it was the Rockin' New Year's Eve.
And 75,000 people. It must have been the earliest sold-out concert of anywhere on this Millennium Eve celebration. And they sang for us out on that reservation, and as well for their devotedly fervent fans.
So Trey was like, we're going to go live in a little bit. He explained what was going on. He's like, when we go live, everybody should yell hi or something. And he's like, wait, cheesecake, but yell it really mean and ominous, like you're going to kill, you went out like you're going to kill someone or something.
We have 2 minutes till the thing starts. Actually, it would be kind of funny if we'll play a song, right? We'll play short songs if there's time for you guys to react at the end. But it's something that we wanted to do on our live album that we never got around to. We're thinking it'd be weird if instead of clapping and cheering, everybody did some odd thing like scream cheesecake or something.
And so when they gave us the signal and went out live, we all were yelling cheesecake, and they went into heavy things. And to this day, cheesecake has a special place in my heart.
At one point, Trey sat down and played the In-Law Josie Wales on acoustic in like the middle of the night. And it was the most beautiful. And like you think about acoustic, like it's soft, it's delicate, it's this, you want to like kind of lean in to listen to it. And I really felt like when he sat down and played that, it's whatever time it was, 3, 4 in the morning, like people kind of sat down and they kind of leaned in and you could hear like every note. There wasn't a million chompers. My memories of it were very clear as far as the crowd really being engaged with the music throughout the night.
But they played so good. I mean, like I'd say the best Sand ever. I personally, I mean, I don't know. I'm not one of those like best this, best that. But I remember the Sand at Cypress was just 30 minutes. And like you could like, Mike was like a metronome. Like you just focused on Mike for that 30 minutes and he just did not break stride with that just steady beat. Oh my God, it was so good.
The Sand is my favorite Phish song, and the Sand from the Midnight Set is like the one that I compare all others to.
The quadraphonic toplines thing is always going to be funny to talk about because really, was it that or was it just a long ambient jam?
There were just some moments in the middle of this, at 3, 4 in the morning, like, where am I? What is happening?
Well, I tell you what, during the quadraphonic toplines, we all laid down, just stared at the sky. I probably drifted in and out over that 10 or 15 minutes, but that was enough rest for me with everything else going on.
People are like taking naps. People are like it's every function of life that you see in this 8-hour set.
We looked at it like an all-night dance marathon, kind of like they have at colleges sometimes for fundraisers.
Like at one point I looked at my girlfriend and I was like, I have to go to the bathroom.
And that for the first time at a Phish show, you had to leave, not the grounds, you're still in the concert grounds, but you had to go and get food or drinks and go to the bathroom and do all these things that you don't normally do.
And we were like maybe a couple hours in and like we weren't drinking. Like there was no way to like go and like grab a beer and like, oh, let me get a couple beers for everybody and come back. Right. Like you weren't doing that. You had to battle through probably 30,000 people to get to like a bathroom.
Although I don't remember getting food. I probably didn't need to eat. I probably ate something that made it so I didn't need to eat.
And then you're on whatever, you've been partying in the Everglades for 2 days now. And like at 3 in the morning, 3:30 in the morning, like I'm going, do you have to go? Because I might not literally like, I don't know if I can find this spot again.
On the fence because people didn't want to leave the show and because the porta potty situation, despite the lemon wheels, despite the promise of the lemon wheel with the Portalet Pagoda, there are issues with, with the porta potties and just the convenience of the fence.
Even with landmarks and soundboard, like the lights that far out are not illuminating the crowd, to lead you back to where you were going. And so she's like, I'll go with you. So we went to the bathroom and it was maybe a 30 or 40 minute round trip. And somehow miraculously we stumbled back across like our group of friends that we had been with.
So I remember, we were kind of pressed up towards the fence at the beginning, but I got away from there because the whole perimeter, the whole round perimeter was beginning to smell a lot like urine because that turned into the guys, urinals.
The journey, and we only left once and came back in the 8-hour set because that's how insane, like daunting it was to like look and be like, the bathrooms are only like 200 yards away, but you gotta like fight and weave through and step over and around 15,000 people before you can even like, get up to the break of, the throng of people.
I mean, I remember the Bug being really cool. Bug sticks out to me for some reason. I guess because it was very late. It was close to when sunrise was that they did it, but I don't think I had ever seen it live before.
I will tell you one of the funniest things I remember from that festival was we're all standing there, and by this point, some people are sitting down, some people are laying down, whatever. And my buddy Jerry's like a little bit behind me, and the sunrise is coming up, and it's this glorious, like pink and white. It looked like a peppermint swirl candy almost, like the sky is just absolutely breathtaking. And they break into, you hear Page, the first notes of Waiting in the Velvet Sea. You just hear that first chord. And I'm sitting there like John Madden almost, right? And I'm just nodding. And the minute I hear it, I go, "It's appropriate." And I just like turn back and look, and all these people, like, I think I cracked people out of their trance with like just screaming like, "It's appropriate." And my buddy cracked up. Now, anytime there's any like appropriate song, he always finds me and goes, "It's appropriate," because I sounded like a fucking idiot. It's like 5 hours of like losing my mind all in one. Like, I must have sounded like Sasquatch or something.
Then Here Comes the Sun. Languedoc played that over the PA after they were done.
And there was just this feeling of stunned silence. Like when we were walking out of the concert park, like nobody was talking, nobody was like laughing and like cheering. Like it was this silent walkout. I mean, and the PA is playing Here Comes the Sun, and you're just walking out and there's like still like people laying everywhere, like bodies strewn across the concert park. And, we had just been up for, basically 24 hours. I mean, even longer. I think we tried to crash like before the midnight set on the 31st, but like it was a party, so nobody was sleeping.
And because of the schedule was so crazy, it was 3 sets the first day, and then of course 1 set the second day, followed by that midnight to dawn set. And you come back after that set, and nobody goes right to bed.
And so we got back to the tent, and we crashed for like 6-8 hours, like dead to the world. And this is with people packing up and leaving instantly as soon as the show was over.
I feel like we slept for a few hours, and then Penny said, "We're going to get out of here." I feel like we left by noon.
We were raging. One, we couldn't fall asleep if we tried, because we made sure that we were up all night. So then those things don't just stop right then. So when Here Comes the Sun, and you're still waiting for things to, you're still in full, even though you've been shredding for the past, 48 hours, you're still in full shred mode.
Yeah, she woke me up and I just started shoving shit in that army bag that had all the shirts.
I had heard like they're not starting to kick people out until the morning of this noon on the 2nd. Everybody's got to be out. And I was like, we don't have any place to be. Let's not rush out. And
so we went back, and then I do remember when I woke up. I remember very vividly when I woke up on it must not have been morning. My sense of timing was all off. It was a new millennium. So all bets were off. And whenever, I think I probably woke up that evening. I think I probably, woke up on the evening of the 1st, as, afternoon, and tried to open the car door, and the battery had died.
Yeah, that part is really fuzzy to me. It's like we were there at the midnight set, and then I was outside of North Carolina.
There was no way I could have like even gotten us out of the parking lot at that point, at 8 or 9 in the morning. And so we stayed for the whole first, and, rested. And then that night we had like some food. There were still some people around. We got like a relatively decent night's sleep on the first, and like got up in the morning on the second, and packed the car and drove right out.
And I was stuck inside, and I started panicking. "I do not like this very much," was what I was yelling, until I figured out that just because the batteries were dead and I couldn't, and the power locks were off, didn't mean that I couldn't jimmy my way out of the car.
Still just tried to understand like what we had just been a part of.
It was a life changer. I mean, the music at that one was, and we kind of had a feeling that something was up with the band. You know, like at that point, we kind of felt like something was like not off, but just like you heard rumors.
I don't think it was Phish's. It wasn't my favorite Phish festival. I might be in the minority, but it wasn't my favorite Phish festival, and it wasn't my favorite Phish show.
There was this rumor about the hiatus coming up and all of that already. So there was kind of like everyone was so juiced up about how good Cypress was.
But it was an experience that anyone that was there will tell you it was a once in a lifetime experience.
Like, you know, I remember there like just being talk of like, it just felt like they were all making up on stage somehow or something, but
there's no repeating it. There's no, you can't replicate that because you can't replicate the energy of the millennium and of having, 100,000 or 120,000 or however many people they want to say, the size of Woodstock, fine.
Again, that could have just been all our, we were heavily embedded in it at that point, like as many, like going to like, we tried to never miss a show. So we were pretty deep into like the lot gossip.
It's just that you can't replicate that. And you also can't replicate you can have another New Year's Eve festival, but you can never again have Big Cypress. Big Cypress will never happen again.